A few pickups from the last time that we were taping. One is in reference to this diagram and what I was talking about those three labor zones. I wanted to be sure, although I said it, but be sure that you get a clearer grasp of this, that the Einsteins and the roofers ultimately, from the whole spectrum, are serving life as food, fuel, and a medium of energy exchange. Now, that's no matter what you might be doing, or what somebody else might be doing, apparently, preeminently in their life. When it comes to a certain ultimate level, there is a distinct similarity between the atomic physicists, the writers, the painters, those who are laying out drainage ditches, that there is an ultimate similarity in that everyone is serving as some fuel. There's no escape from it. And also note that neither life nor its cells, in this case man, can be all growth or all entrenchment. It's not possible. In the same way, when you look at it individually, and you see that there is a struggle, and hence there is always strugglers, someone to do the struggle, then you not only within yourself have the end zones, what would appear to be the extremes within a three-dimensional life, that there's parts of you trying to grow, parts of you that are anxious, itchy to move. We'll assume to some degree you would not be here. And then there are parts of you that are absolutely in charge of the eastern seaboard, the eastern zone, and they are in charge of just permanent encampments. Their big old large rear end has found its place in life, maybe your favorite chair at home, literally or figuratively. It is there, and any ideas about we should be out doing something, we're to go out and run. All of you should be well balanced enough, that is, unbalanced enough previously, but some general overview of this full kind of spectrum in you to be aware of the fact that you can have ideas that seem to be serious enough, that seem to be sincere to you, that there you sit, surrounded by potato chips and dip, watching TV, and it comes on about something about a mind is a terrible thing to waste if not a vice president. And it's something about higher education, and you have a sincere. It suddenly strikes you that, by God, I should go back to school. And sometimes I really itch to be back in the classroom. That was fun. And plus I could move. Anyway, you have it a sincere. But the eastern seaboard, your rump, the lower part of your nervous system, has found its place in life. This is nothing untoward. There is no ill, there's no malady, there is no psychological imbalance going on. But down in your big old lard ass that has found its place, it has no interest whatsoever in getting up and going to school. Or it could be that you're watching, they're promoting the sale of some kind of new running shoes or some kind of exercise equipment. And up at this end you go, I've had enough of this thing around. I should be out myself. I'm killing myself. I should get more exercise. I should lose weight. And you are as sincere as that zone can be. You're as sincere right then as a human brain can be under ordinary gravitational holes. But your hips, the other end of your spectrum, has no interest whatsoever, to say the least. It is just as sincere if it could talk. If we could jump into your nervous system and you asked the lower end, down in the good old red areas of your circuitry, and you said, what do you think of that? And they could talk nothing. I mean, if you tried to scare them, if they could talk a little bit, this is really going nowhere else. You're either here or you don't. But if you could really talk to the red circuits, the nonverbal parts of the human nervous system, and say, haven't you been listening all these years? Don't you watch TV? Don't you even hear what's going on up in your own upper story? Stuff about cholesterol and being overweight and smoking, all that. And maybe it said, yeah, I have. Well, won't you do something? If you recall, I tried to point out a little bit, just rough sketches, in that zone, it seems to be the conservative, the red shift area of the spectrum. Intellectually, it's almost an area of indifference. They're not anti-intellectual, they're not anti-thought, as it appears in the 3D world, because many times people are accused, large groups of people or people with certain attitudes are accused of being anti-intellectual even. But it's not really anti, it's just indifferent. So if you've got your own hips attention, if they could be conscious and speak, and you said, well, aren't you aware? Haven't you been hearing the brain up there take in this information for years now that you're overweight and you're sitting around and you're killing yourself? And it went, yeah. And you said, well, it's not imagination. They got statistics. Your brain believes it. And your hips are still going, well, yeah. Well, you deny it? Well, no. Well, do you realize you may be knocking years off your life? To your hips. You know what knocking years off its life, that you might lose 2.7 years statistically from sitting here? That you're either going to die 2.7 years earlier, or else you're going to have to get up, start running, cut down on the Twinkies, give up smoking. Does everybody know, those of you laughing at least, what your hips would say? Yeah. And the brain could say, but don't you know that you are throwing away part of your life? Indifference is sort of I guess a charitable description. There is no real one, of course, to describe this. Is one reason that you're laughing, I suggest. It can't be described for the reason that hips can't talk. For the reason that those areas of your nervous system are not dependent upon talk, on words. But at any rate, in you are these two extremes. But also, in you, the same way there is in life that I was trying to see, there is a middle, the mid-zone, the plains area, that act as mediators, as transition, as a place to where these two energy sources can open up, and whatever life needs in you at any split second, or in large groups of people, the energy can shift back and forth so that it seems as though you are more being held down, directed by your hips, by sort of intellectual indifference, or perhaps you're being led up here. Or perhaps the fire and the passion seems to be right in here, which would be, I wasn't getting into those details, but it would be if you were sitting there and the brain saw the thing about how you're going to die and lose anywhere from 2.7 to 3 years off your life if you don't do so-and-so, and why don't you order this piece of equipment so that you can exercise more. The brain takes it in, and then it's counted down in the middle class, where people are worried about faddish things, which in people's health is a faddish thing. That is, talking about it. And so it's down in this area in the plains they're acting as a kind of mediator that really takes the information that the brain heard, the Pacific area, and it's the one that kind of builds up like, hey, yeah, I should be doing something. We shouldn't be sitting around like this. And so it's agreeing with, sort of sending back positive fumes up to the brain, the information it took in, like, yeah, that is good. I'm glad you heard that. I'm glad you took that in. And then it's trying to send out messages down the hips like, hey, how about the rest of you guys down here? How about shape up? Let's get on some kind of good program. You have got to have that mediating area. You have got to have an area that is really transitional. And it's not just one way, but it does in the ordinary world seem to be the escape to go from one area up. That's the way it appears class-wise. That's the way it appears out in the social world. But it runs in both directions. Once you see it at the ordinary level, what you need to do is you let the Eastern herd cells and workers do their job and then leave the other areas to do theirs. And what might be new in you, an area of new intelligence, is not to get involved with that. It has its own tempo, it has its own schedule, it has its own shifts, and it will take care of itself. And you should not be trying to answer one of those doors or the other, to get all entangled with one of them or the other, because they are serving whatever purposes life wired and primed you up for initially. That, as I keep suggesting to you at the very least, is a fool's errand to try and change that. Just let it go. We'll assume that you are fairly sane to have reached the point you are in life now. That is, that you're fairly healthy, you're not killing yourself, you're just somewhere resembling, or most of you could pass for middle class if you really took a deep breath and pulled your belt a little tighter and maybe combed your hair differently, that most of you could pass for ordinary for a reasonable length of time. That is what I'm telling you you should do in regards to letting the extremes in you and their nervous system do their own appropriate jobs. They were already wired to do it. You didn't teach them how to do it. The environment didn't teach them how to do it. Let them do it. And quit worrying about it. Now right here is an area, just for a second before I really start. If you notice how cute it is that the old world, your old intelligence, attempts to sing the praises of people, men, ordinary people, who in some way can apparently perceive a binary reality, that they are held up intellectually. Blake, not simply writing the songs of innocence, the songs of innocence and the songs of experience, are his insights into not only hell, but into heaven. This passes for someone in the ordinary world who is above, who is more enlightened, who is more intellectually expansive than to simply look upon, in one case, the ills of the world. It's a man who could look upon the ills of the world, write poetry about it, draw about it, and yet turn right around and write about the beauty of the world. And critically, such people are praised. But consider, you're still dealing with a child's plate. And you're still dealing with meat and potatoes. That's what you get to eat. Or if you want to be real fancy, you can have potatoes and meat, which I'll grant you is a slight improvement. An infant's plate, you either get potatoes or you get meat. But then what the ordinary world, what old intelligence holds up as being sterling examples of men with greater insight and intelligence, is still a child's portion. Because all you're going to get is meat and potatoes, songs of innocence, songs of experience, trips to heaven, trips to hell. Life's going to pieces. Life is in a beautiful condition. Whereas, if we were talking about the repast for a real revolutionist, you'd be talking about not only meat and potatoes, but the plate as well. You would have to eat everything in sight. You're dealing with what would amount to a subversive tertium quid. All right, consider all that aside, I just wanted again to point out to some of you, it's not any ordinary criticism for you people on tape of the runnings of the literary world or history, but note, everybody that's considered by history, by ordinary thinking, to be in some way spiritually, intellectually astute, giants, authors of classics, somewhere in the criticism, somewhere in the history of the human genetic nervous system, the person is pointed out as having created works that dealt not with one thing, because the world's full of people decrying the terrible shape of which man is in. But the giants are those that go, yes, things are in a mell of a hess over here, but looked at another way, or over here, if we would just change a few things, it could be a little Arden of Gedon. That passes. But notice, that's the best they can do in the world. And we're not laughing at them, but universities are full, critics everywhere, intelligent people sitting around this planet can hear some comment like that if they didn't think about themselves, and it suddenly strike them, that's a fact. That's a fact. The Shakespeares, the Poes, everybody that did anything worthwhile, even the religious leaders, by God, could point out a binary reality. They could actually present us either meat and potatoes or potatoes and meat. It's a child's plate you're dealing with. All right, on to the area that I had generally in mind tonight. If I had given out literally my new creation legend, I would suggest to you also that I would have pointed out that there was the production of what I know humans like to refer to, I'll use their term, the truth. I would have pointed out that there was the production of two versions of the truth. That is, one, the truth, and 2, the inclusive truth. And let me give you an example. One that seems many people on this planet seems to find it gets to do with blood kin matters. How about this? Here's one truth. A person tells their mother the truth. Let's say they're on the telephone having a conversation, and this person tells their mother the truth. Well, I don't want to come see you. And that's the truth. The nervous system in this case is telling the truth. Let me tell you what the inclusive truth would be. The inclusive truth would be, which is only worthwhile, which is only even relevant to a real neural subversive, to a real revolutionist. This is not necessary, it's not even functional. It'd work, except people wouldn't see the necessity of it in the ordinary world. The inclusive truth would be, using this example, to tell your mother, I would love to come see you. I do so enjoy our visits. It is the inclusion of all known factors, because you have now included in the equation, you have included her truth. In this case, I'm assuming, I'm going ahead and assume for you, that she wants you to come visit. That's her desire. That's her truth, is I want you to come visit. And for whatever reason, we're not going into them because they're not psychological. But all of you know that this comes out apparently as psychological problems people have. Well, the person I'm dealing with here in my made-up example does not want to go visit his mother. That is the truth. And if we were dealing at ordinary levels and I jumped into this made-up scenario, and I said, why do you tell your mother that? And the guy says, well, it's the truth. Well, why do you tell her you don't come see her? It always upsets her. Well, because I don't like to. Because I go over there and she upsets me. What do you want me to do, lie? I'm reasonable. I'm a sophisticated person. That kind of thing. I've read enough. I took some psychology. You can't hold in feelings like that. It doesn't do anybody any good. It can create high blood pressure. I could get ulcers. It's just not the way nowadays to deal with people. This is the 20th century, by God, and we know a little bit more about human nature. She shouldn't ask me to come over. I've told her before I don't like to come over. She should know it. She should know that I've got some problems in my relationship with her. So it's just the truth. I know that sometimes upsets her, but by God, I'm trying to be a truthful person. I've been in analysis, and I know enough that you got to tell the truth. I got to look after myself in life. I'm not trying to hurt her, but if she says, why don't you come see me more often, she's asking for it. I had to tell the truth. Well, I don't like to. I don't want to come over there. I don't want to come see you. Truth is, I don't even like calling you, but I definitely don't want to come over. All right, from all ordinary views, that is the truth. I'm not questioning it. This person I made up says, I do not want to come over and visit you. That's the truth. All right. What are you going to say? That's not the extent of it, though. There is the inclusive truth. And to do that is another form, you recall, of my equation I made up of I plus not I equals everything. This is like another form of it. To get a proper equation, someone attempting to do this kind of stuff, you can't deal with that first truth. That's all right at the 3D level. It's not right or wrong. In my example I was making up, was no condemnation or criticism of the guy that I put in an example, because the world's full of those guys and gals. But to do this kind of stuff, you can't deal with that kind of truth because it is flawed. It is not all that's possible. You have got to bring in all known factors. And let's stick with my example, which is a fairly endemic one, if not emblematic, is that you know for a fact, or you think you do, that your mother wants you to come visit, because she's the one that seemed to entice you to say, well, I don't want to come over, because she says, why don't you come over more often? You know I'd like to see you. Why don't you come over? So we're assuming that part of her truth is, if I jumped in and said, do you want him to come over? And she said, yes. Is that the truth? Well, yes, why would I lie? So that's her truth. It's just her desire that I would like for him to come over and visit me more. This kind of revolutionary special truth or inclusive truth, you have got to take in all known factors and don't come up with any kind of crap of, well, I don't like it. You can call her desire or wanting me to come over to, you can call that her truth if you want to, but I don't like that. Well, if that's the basis of you dealing with what you call the truth, you are ordinary. You have got to take in all known factors. If you're going to try to come up with a correct answer to an equation, you can't get down to a 7 and go, Jesus, I just like 7s. If that's in this equation, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to guess at the answer. You have got to include all known factors, and by so doing, what you do is create a pleasurable chemical alteration in those so included, in this case your mother. You will create, you will produce without fail the pleasurable, which is profitable, not your problem, but a pleasurable chemical reaction in the brain of the person included. And either it will do so in you, the person who does it, or at the very least, at no cost to you. I guarantee that, and all of you should hear that, they can hear any of this. I was just giving you a cheap verbal approach to it that if you don't consider right now, that would also give you profitable, pleasurable alterations in your own brain chemistry by dealing with inclusive truth rather than the truth, the first version, the child's plates version, then I'll guarantee you this. The pleasurable chemical alteration you will cause in the person you have included in your special new truth, if it does not also affect you that way, at least you will have produced it at no cost whatsoever to you. None. You can't beat a deal like that. Even Gimbel's going business can't begin to touch that. No cost whatsoever. This kind of energy statement, that is, the inclusive truth of what you're dealing with someone, what you're conveying to them, includes their truth. It does not exclude yours, but you've got to include theirs. You have got to try and put together I plus not I equals everything. In this case, my truth plus what's not my truth. That is, plus everybody else's truth, which may be in conflict with mine. In this case, my mother's truth is in conflict because my truth is I don't want to go see her. Her truth is she wants me to come see her. So you put it all together and you've got the inclusive truth. This kind of energy statement is very much closer to the universal than the local. Now, I won't say it is the universal because there's always something outside. There's always something holding even that which you conceive of. There's also something holding every sentence. If you say that I can wrap up everything in the world in one sentence, I can take all reality and I can take it from point A to point B, from the capital letters at the beginning of the sentence to the ending period, then that sentence, though, is being held by something. So rather than saying it is the universal, I'm telling you that those kinds of inclusions, where you deal with the equation, whether we're talking about the truth, or you're talking about feelings, whether you're talking about anything you want to, that's always got to be on the basis of I plus not I. That is what seems to be my locality, the reality of my locale, plus everything that's not me, whether it conflicts, whether it partially coincides, whether it seems to be irrelevant, doesn't matter. It's got to be what is I real, what is locally real, plus what is not locally real. What is not I real to me, all put together, equals everything. That, and in this case, the example and my category of inclusive truth is moving much closer to the universal than it is any local. It has less and less specificity. It has less and less to do with man, the individual. It has to do with man, the species. That you're not dealing when you say to your mother, well, I don't want to come see you. By God, what could be more local than that? What could be more a reference to the individual? Because then your mother could say, or somebody staying there could say, well, you shouldn't treat your mother that way. Some people would like to go see their mother. All right, so some people do. I don't. individually, I do not. What do I care about? I care about me. The only thing that I think is what I think. This is a hands-on example of being able to hear and entertain multiple door knocks. As you can hear, which is no problem whatsoever, you can hear the knock of your own nervous system, your own local reality, in this case saying, I don't want to go visit my mother. In other words, you've got an infant's portion to start with. Well, what would you like to eat? You can have potatoes, I'll take them. So you can hear the knock of, I don't want to come visit. And theoretically, everybody, if I pointed out, or even if it just happened in the conversation between the mother and the son. But if somebody said, well, wait a minute, some people like to visit their mother. You could go visit your mother. I mean, it's possible. Every grown son in the world does not want to go visit his mother. And so this guy could say, all right, I agree to that. So in other words, he can agree to the fact that there is possible another door knock. That the world is full of other guys that may be grown and had not dissimilar circumstance and background to you and your mother, but they are sons that actively seek to go see their mother. So the guy can say, all right, no, I don't disagree with that. So he is aware that there is another knock. But as ordinary intelligence is already wired up, it cannot entertain them both. To begin with, it would not even see the validity of trying to. Because the only thing it's interested in is the only thing that everybody's local intelligence is interested in. That is, what I think. Me, the individual. But to be able to do such things, as I am now describing as to be able to deal with a second version of the truth, which would be the inclusive truth, you have got to be able to hear, you have got to be able to entertain multiple knocks. That is when I plus I, not I, equals everything. That is when you are moving closer to the universal instead of the local. That is when you're no longer limited to, well, since potatoes is all I got, I'll eat them. Or, if meat's all they're serving, sure, I'll take it. And of course, it's to bypass that great level of human achievement wherein you might reach the level of who knows who, of Milton. No, not Little Milton, John Milton. Wherein you might be able to go, wait a minute, I got potatoes, but there's some other people that have meat. I think I'll write a group of sonnets to potatoes and then sonnets to meat. You got to bypass that level, which all of you should have already been there anyway. If not, you should have been there the first 2 or 3 minutes of tonight's taping. You have got to go to the place where there is a useful third possibility. You have got to be able to experience directly the reality, even within you, that there are 3 zones of activity taking place in you, in life, in everyone else, simultaneously. You have got to be able to entertain the multiple knocks. And it doesn't matter whether the knocks, if you stopped for a second, which you will constantly be doing, even if the knocks seem to be irritating, such as, if you fall back to the local level, well, I don't care what I say, I still don't want to go visit my mother. So one of the knocks is irritating. So, or some of the knocks could appear to be irrelevant, such as the knock that you might consider I'm doing to you now about, well, I could do that, but to what avail? What would that accomplish? Just telling her a lie? You have got to be able to entertain, in this case, 3 knocks. This is certainly not the limit of it, but you've got to be able to entertain the 3. That starts dealing with thinking that is closer to the universal, that is closer to man the species than it is locally to man the individual. To simply the truth, which the first version, if some of you hadn't already thought about since I started talking, should show you historically, if you need any other pushing and shoving, why it is that people cut each other's throat individually and large numbers of people go out and do holy battle over what? Waving banners saying what? Not your mother wears combat boots, or everybody that lives on the other side of the mountains has zither breath. They're always waving banners that saying the truth, that they're out fighting over what? The truth. Oh, they can say, well, it's the truth in this case is in the medium of religion or economic theory. But that still, the battles are always on the basis of the truth. That we have the truth and you people do not. We have the truth about the way we should be conducting our foreign affairs up to the borders between us and this other state. And the other state says, you call that the truth? You people are idiots. The truth is you're encroaching on our land. So they have the drum rolls and everybody gets drafted and they fight. But it's always over the truth. But notice, which of course I'm not here to rectify the problems of the earth since there are not any. But notice, if you were dealing on the basis of inclusive truth, there'd be nothing to fight over. Because you not only eat the meat and potatoes, you eat the meat and potatoes and the plate it came on. You got to eat everything in sight. I plus not I equals everything. That doesn't leave you any way out, I'm sorry. Those of you that are still looking for a footnote or an asterisk, or those of you that's had some exposure to the legal profession, if not watching Perry Mason on TV and think, well, there's got to be a loophole. I plus not I equals everything doesn't have much room for maneuvering. And if I say that you got to eat, if all you got in life is meat and potatoes, and they serve it to you, you got to eat everything you can get your hands on. I'm assuming that whoever served you got their hand out of the way fast enough. But you're still left with the meat and the potatoes and whatever it's served on. You have to eat up the plains area. You have to eat up Nebraska, parts of Oklahoma and Texas and Kansas and some of the lower Dakotas. You have got to be able to consume it all, which is to say you got to be able to hear everything knocking. Ah, meat, potatoes, a plate. Was that a hand? Good thing they moved it fast enough, which is one reason I might suggest in some areas the gods are known to be very fast in their movements. Okay. Still part of the hands-on that you might find practical, if not pragmatic, since people started using pragmatic that way. Wonder what the pragmatist thinks. Who cares? When you're dealing, especially with ordinary people, I just say at least and especially, but it is not. This is not exclusive. When it seems as though you have got to talk about feelings, especially or at least with ordinary people, such things as love being the great example. It is there that a would-be neural subversive, without fail, has got to resort to the inclusive truth. That is the only way that you can profitably deal with any talk about feelings, emotions, is you have got to deal with the inclusive truth. You cannot deal with the first version, because if you do, you should know by now, you'll end up in a fist fight with your favorite friend, or you'll end up cutting the throat of the woman you love, and perhaps stand there, if not in the guise of a momentary romantic poet, at least of somebody that you saw in a movie, of saying, well, I only killed you because I loved you. Now, it's not ironic. It's not sarcastic. It's not just Hollywood made up. It's a fact. It's the same version of people fighting over the truth. Large numbers of people. The only way you can talk profitably, someone attempting to do this, about feelings and emotions, if for some reason you find that it would be proper or that other people expect it, is you have got to do it on the basis of the inclusive truth. That is, you've got to take in all known factors. You've got to take in their truth. A prime example, if this has seemed too weird again, it still seems to be true, except now women have access to the written pages and periodicals and newspapers and the non-print media. It's people, women still hollering out, and now some men cringing and playing, beat me some more, that men cannot tell women just directly that I love you. And this has nothing to do with so-called cultural norms and influences on the role of sexes and all that. But I'm just using that as an example. If for some reason, let us take that example since that one's fairly well known, the change from from mother and son. If you were with somebody that you've got some kind of relationship with for a week, for a night, and you can tell the other person wishes you would say, I love you. And you think, well, I can't say that. I mean, as scrungy a bastard as I am, as drunk as I am, as drunk as she is, and she's kind of hinting like, I know she wants me to say I love her. I got some principles, damn few, but I'm not. Men are pretty good at this, even drunk, of going, well, I don't say I love you, because they always say somebody's going to lead to something terrible, I guess. But at any rate, I don't want to say I love you because I don't know what it means, or I'm not sure I do love you, or I just told somebody yesterday, the girl I was with last night, I told her I loved her. The inclusive truth would be, now see, of course, we're back to what my example of the guy talking about didn't want to visit his mother, that ordinary intelligence would say, well, wait a minute, you're fixing to deal with lies. That's the binary world. They think if all you got is one version, the truth, then, of course, all you got is meat and potatoes. You either got the truth or the not truth. That is, the truth or lies. And so ordinary intelligence will say, wait a minute, you're about to say that if the other person wants you to say, I love you, you should go ahead and say it. And that's a lie. It's not a lie, it's the inclusive truth. If you think that's a lie, you got the intelligence of Blake or Milton or Buddha or your mother. You got the intelligence of man, the individual, and you're wasting your time doing this if that's all you can hear. Because this is not some kind of justification of lies. There's no such thing as lies. Oh, there is. But it's food, it's energy. I mean, if all you got in life is the only thing that's going to be served up to you is meat and potatoes, are you going to condemn potatoes because it's not meat? Lies are just some way to couch, to mold the medium through which some energy is running. The inclusive truth is not dealing with it being this or that. The inclusive truth would be more like the plate that it's served on. That you're not saying, well, here, have some potatoes. Now the person says, I'd rather have meat. In other words, they want to hear you say, I love you. And you won't say, well, I don't say I love you because it may not be true. So here, have some potatoes. Now the person says, no, I don't want potatoes, I want meat. The inclusive truth is you hold out the plate. And it's got it all. You take in all known factors. It's not a matter of lies or the truth. It is a more complex. It is a more intellectual. It is a more conscious. It is a more beneficial. It is a more pleasing. It is a more profitable, growth-producing truth to include the other person's truth. The other person wants to hear you say, I love you. And you say, well, and your truth is, well, I don't say that. Okay, it's all right. There's nothing to discuss. I don't know why you don't say it. Don't say, well, I'll tell you why. But let me tell you the way my father treated my mother. Give me a break. That is, give yourself a break. Nobody wants to hear that. It's got nothing to do with this. All you got to do, I say, what's your truth? Can you tell if this girl's wanting you to say, or man, it doesn't matter, is wanting you to say, I love you? Yeah, I know that. All right. Well, the truth is, I don't say it. The truth is, I don't mean it. The truth is, I don't love her as far as I can tell. Okay, that's your truth. Well, you want me to tell you why? Forget all that. That's your truth, right? Yes, all right. Now, in this same case, what's her truth or his truth? Well, she's wanting me to say I love you. Okay. But I think I know why. Well, I don't know why. Just, if you're going to stay there, you're going to turn around and you're going to turn your own brain to that same position of being the eternal mix master, and you're not even going to get anywhere. So we got both of those truths. You've got I plus not I. Now it equals everything. Now you turn it into the inclusive truth. And it's not that you're lying. All you're doing is taking into consideration, as you should if you are more intelligent, the other person's factors, the other person's truth. And then you say, well, I love you. I'm not saying you have to, but I am saying if you're going to deal at all, if it seems to be proper, if it seems to be pertinent, if it seems to be called for, if you simply want to, dealing with other people, to talk about feeling, you have without fail got to deal in inclusive truth. Not in the first version, not in the child's portion of the truth, or its counterpart, lies, forms of justification, or attempting to say, look, I know you want me to say I love you, but I don't want to, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to lie to you. Another couple of aspects of the inclusive truth. It is the real way to be able to deal with and forgive your opposition in life. Or as ordinary humans like to say, your enemies. That grand old religious notion about forgive your enemies, that in some way it'd be good for you now, and perhaps even grand for you later, but at least it'd be good for you now. And even psychology in our day has picked up pieces of that it's not good to hold grudges. It can hurt you physiologically, certainly it damage you psychologically. And of course nobody knows how to go about doing it, but I'm telling you how to do it. See, as long as you're dealing with the first version of the truth, that that's the only version, nobody can forgive their enemies. Because their enemies, as that great philosophical song, what was it? She done him wrong, but he was her man. At any rate, somebody has done you wrong, your enemies. And when somebody's done you wrong, that's the truth, right? If somebody's done you wrong, we're not talking about some kind of speculative wrong. We're talking about somebody has done you wrong. Mistreated you, took some money, didn't pay you back. Somebody has done you wrong. You cannot forgive them. Not dealing with the first version of the truth, because the truth is they did you wrong. And if I stepped in the situation and you say, wait a minute, don't try to argue me because the person did do me wrong, that's the truth. So what? I don't care. We're not arguing that. Well, don't you want me to prove it? No, I'll take your word for it. Doesn't matter. The truth is, as far as you're concerned, they did you wrong, right? You go to the other person and ask whether they did you wrong. I'm not talking about just some passing in the night and somebody mugged you, which is not truly exempt, but I'm not going into that. But it's somebody that you had some dealing with, somebody that you had some connection with, and you go to them. And we're not talking about, again, it's no form of verbal flim-flam or attempted justification. If we went to the other person, or if I did and I said, this interlude that you guys had, did you mistreat the other person? Heavens no. Is that the truth? Yes, that's the truth. Now wait a minute. Now I heard that he thought I did. But let me tell you what happened. I don't care what happened. And if you were involved with this and all this going on in your nervous system, which it does, but if you could see it in a more complex way, you're not interested either. There's nowhere to go with that. You're in opposition. You've been mistreated. That's done with. There's not, you cannot go back and repair that. You cannot undo it. That's why you can't forgive your enemies at that level. The inclusive truth is that you have to take in his truth or her truth, and that is, I didn't mistreat you. When your truth is that that's not even worthy of any consideration because you did, all right? I understand that. And his truth is that you didn't. If you do not take in all known factors, the factors that at an ordinary level, that the knock at the door that there's another factor, the only knock that you cared about until now is, he mistreated me. And that's the truth. Okay, we got that. Theoretically, do you understand there's another knock possible that his truth is saying, I didn't mistreat you? Well, yeah, I know he can say that. That doesn't matter. He's wrong. It's a lie. I got the meat. He's dealing with potatoes. I got the truth. He's got a lie. Call it anything you want to. It's not going to help you. It is a known factor. Do you know that he believes he did not mistreat you? Oh, yeah, I know that. I know he says that. But do you know he believes it? I guess it's possible he believes it. People can delude themselves and all that. All right, a known factor to you is that he does not think he mistreated you, right? All right, if you want to call it that, it's a known factor. All right. How can you call yourself intelligent? This is not a sermon. But how can you believe you're doing this if you do not take in all known factors? Well, of course, I guess you can justify yourself if you're back at that level and believe, well, some of what you say and some of what you talk about Some of it's kind of interesting. Some of it I've even found useful, but a lot of it I think, I don't know. You go off the deep end, or I don't even know what you're talking about, or you can do anything you want to. But how can you call yourself intelligent? How can you believe that you're on some kind of extraordinary quest or an attempt to do something out of the ordinary if you will take known factors and go, well, no, I don't like the sound of that, or it's irritating, it's not true. You don't know what not true means. I'm telling you what not true means. Not true is somebody else's truth. That's not complicated. Or what's not true is another known factor. You can call it not true. Call it out forever. I don't care. Instead of calling it somebody else's truth, let's call it a lie. If you're going to press me and be that crude. All right, so, but their lie is a known factor. You know it. You know he says he didn't mistreat you. Yeah, I know that. But it's a lie. Okay. But it's a known factor. Right. How can you not take that in consideration? Now, if you're ordinary, you don't take in consideration. Because you're ordinary, this is insane. If you're ordinary and you know that you've been mistreated, and you also know that he says he didn't, which is not unusual, but of what consequence is that? This is insane to say that you got to take that in consideration. Absolutely insane. Well, I never argued with that. Of course, if you were on the right kind of revolutionary quest, you wouldn't argue with anybody that wants to talk about sanity, yours or anybody else's. As soon as somebody wants to talk about sanity, that's the brother of, hey, let's discuss our religions and our gods. I bet my God can beat up yours. As soon as somebody wants to talk about sanity, I mean, in case you thought that you had somebody you might be able to talk to, as soon as they raise the idea of sanity, you might as well take a nap. Also, in here, as I've suggested to you several times in the past, is the area wherein you can truly, in an extraordinary way that can give you a good 8-year-old jolt sometimes, of being able to appreciate, to use somebody who has, at the elementary level, mistreated you and feels a warmth you never realized. Not personal, it's not individual toward them. But if somebody actually having misused you, and that's the truth, and you be able to get past that, not theoretically, not being able to justify it, not in some way of thinking, well, God knows what he's doing. I mean, he lets people act in scurrilous ways like that, but who am I to judge? Nah, it's being able to make out an equation, it's being able to understand that there is an inclusive truth that eats up everything. If it doesn't, where the hell do you think you're going? If you're not going to take into account all known factors. Well, yeah, I know he thinks he didn't cheat me. But so what? That got nothing to do with me being cheated. That's the truth. You got me. You got me. Caught again. Before we run out, I wanted to tie in another little quick one for the week. Some of you, being around here, and some of what I said, have expressed great pleasure in the idea, if not your own attempt, to be able to experience humor without it being at the expense of someone else. But notice, and I've sort of said that, and some of you have now picked it up, and that's not the point, but many of you have begun to realize that humor with hostility from a more subversive view is not really humor. Having a laugh, and it's at the ordinary level, it always has some form of aggression because it is a transfer medium of ordinary energies. And there's always some tension because someone is being laughed at and someone's doing the laughing. But then some of you have expressed pleasure, and some of you have tried it and succeeded, of writing stuff, and plays, and just thinking in your own way, of being able to experience humor without it being at the expense of somebody else. But let me point out, that's not possible. Everything's at the expense of something else. And humor is not exempt. That even humor is at the expense of somebody or something else. So let me clarify what you are experiencing and what I've been talking about. From a more neurally subversive view, when you know how to do this, what you're doing is dealing with humor at the expense of man, the species. not man the individual. Because it's still at somebody's expense. That is, energy gets transferred from somewhere to somewhere, or you couldn't laugh. It gets transferred from somewhere to somewhere, or you couldn't cry. You couldn't breathe. You couldn't blink. You couldn't hold up your finger. I couldn't say this. You couldn't hear it. Everything's at something's expense. The energy is shifting from one place to another constantly. It's shifting for me to say something. Listen, I'm fixing to say the word something. Can you hear me? Something, and you listen. The energy shifted. Now wait. Something. And then you laugh. Okay. But that kind of humor, even though it's at someone's expense or something's expense, it's at the expense of man, the species, not man, the individual. And to carry it a little bit further, if you can see it, it actually becomes humor at the expense of life. That is, all of us. It's at the expense of the right side of the equation. Everything. Not either I or not I. It is connected to the two versions of the truth I'm giving you. That kind of humor is like inclusive humor. Because not only is somebody, some group, some activity of humanity being laughed at, but you are included in it. Because you're not laughing at man the individual or at individual activities. You are laughing at man the species. And a real subversive to engage in that kind of humor understands that I'm part of the laughter. That is the enjoyable experience that some of you have had, and that you can understand that there can be a kind of humor without hostility. Because there is no object, there is no subject. It is a simply, let's call it a humorous view, temporarily, which is a form of energy exchange, of man the species, not man the individual. And there is no person being laughed at the exclusion of the laugher. It is an inclusive humor. It includes all known factors. That, yeah, I laughed at that dumb thing the guy said. The stupid thing that people do. What else is funny is I thought that was the truth. That is, I thought I was right to go, boy, is that dumb. So you're not laughing at, boy, look at that dumb stuff they do. What the real inclusive of all known factors is, well, I knew that was dumb. I'm the one who decided that was dumb. That's the reason I made a joke about it. Well, all of you are doing so well. You've included all known factors. It's not... At one time, you made a joke. You made a cynical, smart-ass remark about this person or some group of people, and it got a laugh. And you even laughed about it. And every time you see it or think about it, you go, ha, ha, ha. And I say, well, wait a minute. Are those people really that dumb? You go, yeah. Are you just saying that? No, I believe it. In other words, you're telling me the truth. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. You're not lying. No. That's the reason it's funny is how dumb they are. All right. So we got, the truth is, what they're doing is dumb. Right. We got to include all known factors. The real subversive is laughing that, wow, not that what they did was dumb. We're not involved with trying to go back and straighten that out. You were wired up to believe that what they did was dumb. We're not going to try to go back and say, well, we should be more charitable. We shouldn't have ever accused these people of being dumb because God bless their little hearts. We know. Never mind all that. You said that what they did was dumb. Okay, we got that. The real humor, now we got to be inclusive. The humor is, now that you can see more, we were asking what happened to him last time. Now that you can see more, the inclusive humor is I thought that was the truth. I thought that was the truth. The laugher is included in the laughter. You are now laughing at, studying, whatever you're doing, you're laughing at man the species, not man the individual, which is the only profitable study. It's the only profitable approach. It's the only profitable view. It's the only profitable way to think about human life is as a species, not an individual. The rest of it's a waste of time. And I'm being charitable, as always, to say it's a waste of time. Because it wasted my time saying it's a waste of time. Needless to say, but I'm going to say it, because needless to say was a waste of time, it was a figure of speech. Plus it's the kind of figure, if you ever find Seymour, it's the kind of figure that he used to like, but the man had strange taste. That's kind of inclusive humor, I was going to conclude by saying. Can truly be profitable, can truly have a profitable effect on a real revolutionist brain chemistry. It can. But it is laughter at no individual's expense. And there's no way to justify, there's no way to theorize that. You have to understand what I'm saying. But that kind of humor is a form of alteration of the brain chemistry. But it's got to be sans all aggression. It has got to be without any hostility, and the way you can do that is the laughter has to be inclusive. It has to be based upon your conception, your consideration of man the species. It's all inclusive, not man the individual. And by individual, one person, one group, one religion, one race, one sex, one anybody, one any group, any collection. You're now dealing with man the individual. It's got to be with man the species. And then you can have a profitable use of an alteration of the brain chemistry that can still pass as being humor. But it's at no one's expense individually. And it's to your expense, it's to your profit specifically by being able to do it. We'd be out of here. Can we leave it running?
In the public tape.
Epilogue? We on? You people out there on tape, and you people here, I just wanted to say it one time and get it on tape. If a wider audience is not found for this, I am ceasing all operations.